reach the achievement test. You have to score well on the achievement tests, and we've now got our teachers also being evaluated on the achievement tests. How well your children are doing, right?
Right, and what you see is that this is really educationally unethical. If the only way to measure your teachers, and when we call it high stakes testing, we don't mean high stakes for the students. They're going to suffer, of course, but it's high stakes for the teachers. And so what that means is if you're a teacher who can't get your kid to the standards, or if you're a principal of a school who can't get the school to the standards, your job is in jeopardy. And so what does that lead to? Unethically. It leads to teachers teaching to nothing but the tests. You're not trying to help your kids learn. You're not trying to really give your kids a broad background to allow them to think critically. Your job is simply to get them to score well on a particular test. And that's not education. That's a lot of things. It's crude, it's doctrinaire, it's mind-numbing, but it's not education.
And I think one of the things that we really must impress, especially on our homeschool parents, is that look at what's happening. When they've rewritten the SATs, when they've rewritten the assessment test that you, by law, must make sure that your child is taking, so you can prove that you're not just letting your child sit over in a corner doing nothing all day long and not getting any exposure to anything. These are the tests that you have to pass. If you can't pass them because they've so convoluted the answers, they are going to be directing. As you said earlier about the curriculum being directed by Bill Gates' statement, which, by the way, is something that we were fighting and talking about many, many years before Bill Gates came in and decided he was going to put all this money towards this. But the whole thing is that the test is really what drives the curriculum.
That's exactly right. And for homeschool moms and dads, I want to underline your warning that you may think this doesn't apply to you. You may think, thank God I got my kids out of the public schools. Your kids may be able to do calculus in 8th grade. They may be reading Shakespeare in 2nd grade. But when they sit down to take the tests now, the SATs and the ACTs are both going Common Core. David Coleman, an activist, a big donor to the Obama administration, he's the man chiefly responsible for writing the standards. No sooner did David Coleman in Washington write the standards than he immediately and incestuously became the CEO of the college boards, where he goes from Common Core, putting it in, to immediately going to the college boards, where he is rewriting the SATs to conform to Common Core. Right? That kind of unelectable, unaccountable, nobody ever voted for this guy. Who gave them this power behind closed doors? Now before we're even 3 years into Common Core, the entire testing system to get your kids into college is being transformed to Common Core. And so, given that that's the reality, that's why Common Core moms and homeschool moms and dads are going to have to worry. It's not that they're going to continue to give their kids a really good education, but it's not a Common Core education. Right. And what they're trying to do, both legislatively and in terms of testing, is they're trying to change all the rules so that only kids who demonstrate Common Core proficiency, not math or English or science proficiency. Only kids who demonstrate Common Core proficiency will be passed forward. And that's going to be the death of homeschooling if it's not called back.
So now what we see, and just project this a little bit forward, is that we're really creating and educating towards, not really educating, but indoctrinating towards a workforce that does not think, that we've removed any opportunity for people to learn to think and to analyze and be logical about anything.
Well, I started the segment, if you ask me in one word what Common Core is, I would say it's statism. The purpose of Common Core is to convince kids they belong to the state. And that would make sense, right? That it's not even, you're teaching dependence. You're teaching obligation and dependence, that the government gives you everything, that the government, whatever money you make is the government's money. They may give you some back, let you keep some, but it belongs to them. That the state, not moms and dads, the state, not religion, or has the authority in this country to determine who you are, and what you will be. And so and you see the social justice aspect of this. It's not fair that some kids can really do math well. It's not fair that some kids can really do well. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of prohibit the kids who can really excel from excelling. We're going to pull them back. We're going to make everybody in this one mediocre lump in the name of social justice. And as we know, if we've been paying attention, social justice is just another word for basically socialism. right? Letting the government completely control and dictate outcomes so that everybody gets the same thing always educationally. And we saw it with No Child Left Behind. You've been fighting this for 20 years. We saw it with Goals 2000, that the only way you can get most American school kids to a standard is if you keep lowering the standard. It's not about accelerating it.
Right. And it totally undermines everything that this country was founded on. Because we were founded, the reason that we have a republic is because we were dependent upon individual responsibility. And this is indoctrinating everyone towards this dependency, as you say, which is a collectivism, a socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it. That is exactly the direction we're heading it towards. And I can't help but this visual keeps coming into mind, is Glenn Beck's Agenda 21, where the woman is standing there doing nothing but doing a treadmill every day to generate enough electricity. And since we're getting rid of coal and any fossil fuels and trying to go to green gas, green energy that doesn't provide anything, it will be totally Ottomans.
Well, and it's certainly testing for the sake of testing. I mean, at least I took some testing in the 70s so that a school could place me into the appropriate level course in the subject. Professors from Wisconsin, I graduated from a college in Wisconsin in Superior. Well, I took a French language test when I got there so they could figure out of the 4 levels, where should I be taking my college French? Not, oh, he's too good at it. Let's move him back down to elementary and, keep our A students, That wasn't the reason. The purpose was he should be taking conversational advanced French because he already had 2 years of it in a high school in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Right.
No, that's a great point. And we are not testing for the sake of figuring out where kids begin. We are now testing to determine outcomes. You think about, this is all outcome-based education.
Yes.
And Agenda 21 is exactly right, that ultimately Gates is already trying to push this at the UN level, Common Core. But it's outcome-based education, and that means that we're not concerned about where our students are, these placement tests. We're not concerned about putting kids where they need to be so we can help them excel. We're testing them to determine where they come out. And so it doesn't matter whether your kid's particularly smart in a particular subject or not, or has a good attitude, or works hard, or has a good home environment to help them. It's not about that. It's not about what you can control on the front end. It's simply making sure that every kid comes out in exactly the same place. Right?
Exactly. And this has all been what we objected to, but didn't quite recognize why we objected to it, was when we started mainstreaming students, and now you had your brightest students helping with the reading of your children who were struggling. So now you've eliminated their being challenged in any way, shape, or form. They're now making sure that you're bringing the gifted child down to a mediocre level and raising the challenged child up to the middle.
Well, and let's not forget too, for 20 years now, we've been dumbing down our teachers. Not just getting rid of the Department of Education, we need to get rid of education schools. Because whenever at my university, everyone I've taught at, whenever they want to teach an English teacher English, they send them to an English professor. But whenever they teach them ed psych and ed theory and all this abstract nonsense that they get in the ed colleges, that's where they're getting the indoctrination. So we've been dumbing down our teachers for 12 years. So our teachers are increasingly incapable of doing the kind of work we used to expect from our elementary school kids,
well,
right?
And to my husband's point, and he always brings this up, is that we used to have women, and not to say that women shouldn't explore and be all that they can be, but it used to be the common vocation that you were going to explore. Other than being a mother, if you needed to bring funds into the family, you usually went into teaching or you went into nursing, because those were natural marriages to your abilities or your natural tendencies as a woman. And but then we started saying, well, you can be anything you want to be, and so some of the brightest and more and sharpest women now are engineers, they're doctors, they're lawyers, but they're not teachers any longer. And he claims that that's been part of the lowering of the standards of our teachers.
I think it's even bigger. It's exactly right. I think it's bigger than that too, because at the university, I've taught at 7 different universities, And it's unfortunate, but it's true, that the education, it becomes a feeding ground for kids who fail out of math or fail out of science or fail out of chemistry. We've so transformed teaching into a sociological experiment. It's not even about mastery of a subject matter anymore.
Right.
In order to be a teacher and go through all the student teaching, you have to be ideologically pure, not necessarily gifted as a teacher, or not even necessarily gifted in math or English or whatever your subject is. And so consequently on college campuses, we find a lot of kids who cannot cut it in any other discipline end up in education, because there is nothing to master. It really just is adopting the mantra and the psychobabble that comes with it. And even the least bright kids can manage to be, and if they can't be teachers, they'll go ahead and become liberal politicians, right? All they do is they master the soundbite, they master the zombie-like lefty talking point, and boom, you're 100% where you need to be in education departments.
And by the way, those liberal politicians send their children to the best schools they can find to
Yeah.
actually teach them the critical thinking
Yeah.
and those sorts of things.
Isn't it interesting that one of the first things President Obama did when he became president was shut down that wonderful charter school that was educating all those inner city black kids, right? And while his kids are off at the swankiest of swanky private schools, the first thing our president does is shut down an actually working school that's reaching really disadvantaged African American kids. He pulls the plug on that, flatlines that whole program in the name of ideological purity for the teachers unions, right?
Right. Well, Dick Pesta, you have certainly enlightened our morning this morning. Now, what are you encouraging parents to do, or even citizens to do, when they know that what they're seeing is not right? And I'm seeing it from grandmothers, I'm seeing it from people who don't have children at all, but they see what's going on, and they're intelligent, they're reading, they're educating themselves on it. What are you going to advise them to do on an evening? What tools are you going to give them to walk away with to make a difference?
The big thing that the federal government's a lost cause on this. This is their program, they wanted. I think that we're at a stage now where moms and dads can still win this fight, but they've got to get motivated. Work on your state and local politicians. This is an election year. If your guy, you voted for your guy last time, and tell him, you've done a great job, but I'm not voting for you unless you make a strong anti-Common Core statement. Let them know that this is a big deal. What the feds are counting on is, and even your local school board, what they're counting on is most moms and dads, they see middle school, elementary school as a babysitting service. Turn your kids over to the state for 8 hours a day. We don't feel that way, and most moms and dads don't. So if we can get to the point where even a small minority of moms and dads in New Hampshire and across the country wake up and start fighting this, then they'll back down on it. But we've got to work fast, because in a year or two, it's going to be so deeply embedded, it's going to be impossible to pull out. So now's the time. Pay attention to what your kids are doing. Make sure demand that your kids bring their textbooks home. And moms and dads, look at the assignments. I promise you that if you start watching what's going on with these Common Core schools, you may be the most unpolitical person in the world, but it's going to make your blood boil. And right now, moms and dads are the only ones who can win this, and all they have to do is wake up and start letting their voices be heard. At the school board level, at the superintendent level, in their teachers' classrooms, let the schools know that you're watching, and that'll work.
Well, and I cannot let you go by without mentioning one more aspect of this, and that is the private schools. My daughter took her children out of a Catholic school because the Catholic schools have bought into Common Core. So just because your children are in a place where you've been paying for them and you're sure that that's not what's going on, you need to be involved, because it is insipidly, is that the word I want? Insipidly creeping in where it should not be. And just stop and think, if it's in our public schools and it's going to indoctrinate our homeschoolers, and just because your children are at a school where you're paying the bill does not mean that they're exempt, because they've rewritten SATs and ACTs.
And that's where I got started doing this way back. It wasn't public schools. I was absolutely blown away that over 176 Roman Catholic dioceses took Common Core the very first year without being asked to. And that's where I got started with. It's absolutely shocking. Our Catholic schools have been educating their kids at a much higher level, and now they've taken, the NCEA, the largest Catholic organization in the country, is taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from Bill Gates to advertise for it. There you go.
Oh my gosh. Well, that certainly explains why they have been taking it. We have been talking with Dr. Duke Pesta, who will be at the Floral Street School in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, tonight at 7 o'clock, tomorrow at Wyndham Town Hall, again at 7 o'clock in Wyndham. And this has been We Hold These Truths on WSMN 1590. If you don't know about Common Core, educate yourself now. It's absolutely vital for the existence of the United States of America. This has been Karen Testerman on We Hold These Truths, WSMN 1590, Nashua's source for news and talk.